character. It wasn't the one I used to use. Anyway, hey, how's it going? It's me, Charlotte360, and you might be asking yourself, why are you sitting in your car in what appears to be a fur coat? It is because I saw this coat at Target today and it called out my name from the rack and I had to buy it. This is a coat that you could buy on Target's website because I don't believe in gatekeeping information. It is a knee length fuzzy coat, like a coat. It's lined, and it is in a large houndtooth print. And it is so luxurious. It's like wearing a blanket. It's soft, it's full, it goes up to a 4X. It's just wonderful. I'm definitely feeling like I'm very much in my Joanne the Scammer cosplay. Like I'm feeling very kind of like, don't talk to me, And it's funny that I should talk about Joanne the Scammer because I think you guys know why the fuck I'm talking to you today. I'm talking to you because we can't have nice things. Uh, we can't have nice things. Crush, what? Ah! God damn it. I'm so mad at him right now. I'm smiling because I'm mad, but I'm also like, why would you expect better? So yeah, it's funny how stupid and ridiculous this is. So I get on Twitter as I want to do every single day. And when I get on Twitter, there is trending in K-pop Crush with like 250,000 tweets. And I'm like, the hell is going on? Why is Crush trending like this? This is odd. I mean, his single came out weeks ago, so I don't think he's trending because of the single. So I go ahead and I get on Twitter and there's videos with an S, videos of Crush at a concert, like dapping up fans, slapping people's hands. And there are two darker skinned females at the concert. They have self identified as Black people. And when Crush is going through the audience slapping hands, he like purposefully seems to avoid their hands. And they posted it online for people to see. And at first, people were like, well, maybe it's the angle, and that's why it looks like he didn't slap their hands. Then somebody showed a couple more videos of different angles, and it is very clear. He slaps the hands of virtually everyone near them, but doesn't slap their hand. And of course, living in the time that we live in and living in the social conditions we live in, it was assumed that the reason why he didn't slap their hands was for racist intentions. And once it became a big deal on the internet, Crush then put out an apology for missing some fans' interactions and saying that he did so because safety protocols, not COVID protocols, but safety protocols. He claims that there were people pushing against the front fencing of the stage with bags, and that's why he avoided those people because they were pushing these bags. And so that's why it says that. But then when you look at the video, it's very clear that's not the situation, and he dapped up basically everybody in their area but them. So like, what safety precautions are you talking about? And supposedly, I guess in Korea, when people were going to concerts during COVID and like right after the main like big COVID season, people wearing gloves to go to like fan events and signings and stuff like that. And so people were thinking that maybe the issue was that these girls were not wearing their gloves. But when you look at the video, no one's wearing gloves. So that's not it either. And I'm just very disappointed. I'm very disappointed because during the initial kind of Black Lives Matter push, Crush posted about Black Lives Matter on his Instagram, which apparently he's since deleted that post. And that's also like, what the fuck, man? Um, and then also somebody posted a video from when he did Masked Singer, I think back in 2016. He did Masked Singer and he had on a mask because that's what they were on Masked Singer. And the mask was a black face with big white lips. And supposedly the character is a character called Michael from a show in Korea. and the character design is because the person is a Korean person who's like really into Michael Jackson and wears dark skin to impersonate Michael Jackson. However, when you look at the character design of Michael, spelled Michol, that Michael is like the same color as me. And the mask that Crush is wearing is practically the same color as my purse. Actually, darker than my purse. It's like a dark brown. And yeah, now I don't put it past anybody to be less than what I expect them to be. Like, there's no one in Hollywood celebritydom that I look at and be like, there's no way that person wouldn't let me down. Like, even recently, people have criticized Dolly Parton because she has a stage show at Dollywood called Stampede that has some racist implications. It has some Civil War kind of iconography, and people are upset about that. So I'm not saying that anyone is above reproach, but it's really weird for Crush to go out of his way to dap up everybody except these women. So that's odd. Like oh, don't touch me. That's weird. But also, like, so much of what Crush does is coded in Black culture that it's bizarre that he would go out of his way to make Black people feel uncomfortable when he goes out of his way to show how much he's aligned with Black culture in his music. Like, when you look at his collaborations, he collaborates with other people who are practicing in Black musical tradition, or he's collaborating with Black people. You know, maybe you guys forgot he did all those collaborations with Pink Sweats, but he did that. And I think he's done a few other collaborations with Black artists, but yeah, he definitely is not shy about saying he's influenced by Stevie Wonder and Earth, Wind, and Fire and all of these other, again, Black artists. One of the reasons why Bittersweet is one of my favorite songs Crush has ever done is because it reminds me of the 90s R&B music I used to listen to back when New York Undercover was a TV show I watched on Fox. And so it's one of those things where so much of his career he has openly stated is influenced by Black jazz musicians, Black R&B singers, hip hop culture, so much, practically everything. But when it comes to the lives of real life Black people and just being generous enough to slap hands, that's going too far. That's too much of a kindness to extend. And this conversation is not just about Crush. I mean, I could spend some time talking about, man, Crush, that's some dog shit you're doing. I could sit here and say, don't ever buy his music again. Um, but I'm not going to do that because I think that everyone is entitled to their own opinions about how they feel about him. I'm hoping he'll come up with a better apology because this apology was fucking weak as shit. It didn't address any of the reason why people were mad. And so I hope that happens. But also, like, Crush is just this latest thing with Crush is just an opportunity for me to talk about something else that I've really wanted to talk about for a while, but I haven't because it's very, very sensitive. So I'm glad to have this entree to the conversation. But a side note to the Crush conversation, a lot of people are mad at J Hope, and I understand why they're mad at him. I'm not saying that they're right. I'm just saying that I understand why they're mad. So Crush puts this IG apology on his Instagram, and J Hope liked his post. And people were saying, wow, J Hope really likes this bullshit ass apology that he wrote that was no good at all. It didn't address anything. It was like full of bullshit. You have to understand, at least I understand, you need to understand. I hope you'll understand. J Hope probably is paying all of no attention to what Crush did. He probably does not give a damn about what Crush did. And I think he's basically like, I'm just glad you apologized because we just did a song together and it makes me look bad that you didn't apologize. So hopefully this PR move you just made will save things for me. So thank you for attempting. I think J Hope's not invested enough in Crush's life for him to be like, man, dog, I read these other things and like, I really think you need to A, B, C, and D. No, probably J Hope probably heard, hey, the guy you just did a song with is having a rough time and he's posting an apology. And J Hope's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. Great. I'm glad he's apologizing. Safety first. He probably is not nearly in the Twitter streets the way the rest of us are. So if he's unaware of why that apology is bullshit, I'm going to give him that kind of grace. I'm not saying that he's above it all. I'm just saying I'm going to give him the grace of believing that maybe he didn't realize what a bullshit ass apology this is. But I needed to address that because I'm sure somebody was going to ask, what about J-Hope? That's all I have to say about that. That's all I have to say about that. But what I really wanted to talk about is this idea that a lot of Black K-pop fans have that somehow because K-pop artists or K-hip hop artists or K-R&B artists traffic in our musical culture, that means they give a damn about us in any way, shape, or form, whether it's socially, emotionally, civically, or romantically. They really don't give a fuck. And what made me want to always have this conversation for many, many years was Jay Park. And I'm not slandering Jay Park. Don't get mad. I know he didn't have nothing to do with this conversation. It's not cold enough for me to keep this coat on the whole time. That's why I had to take it off. So, I remember when I first started getting into K-pop in 2012 was like the big year that I really started pressing into K-pop. And I remember at the time, one of the big ways I got involved with K-pop is through fan fiction. I know, dirty little secret. Everybody's got theirs, I got mine. I was on Asian fanfics a whole bunch. I used to read stuff on Wattpad. I used to read stuff on live blogs. LiveJournal. I used to read a lot of stuff on LiveJournal. I don't anymore because LiveJournal is shit. Um, and back when I was reading all of this stuff, I remember there being a whole bunch of fan fictions called AMBW. I think it was AMBW, which stood for Asian Male Black Woman. And it was all of these people who, like, anytime any major K-pop artist did anything with an R&B flavor or was photographed, doing a selfie with a black fan, it would all be sudden, he loves black girls. He loves black girls. And all these like fandoms would emerge of this fantasy of being with this entertainer because he embraces black culture, therefore he must love black girls. And I spoke about it in my last live stream. If you didn't watch it, in my last live stream, I spoke about how, like, the fantasy of believing that you would ever be good enough for any K pop idol to be with you and why it's a fantasy. I did a whole diatribe about that. So I'm not going to rehash that conversation because it literally was just too new for me to talk about it again. But that trend is not new with Jay Park. Like, that trend happened with Rain. I love me some Rain. That trend has happened with every single member of BTS. I think Namjoon got it first, but like every single member has had that conversation. Every K artist has had that conversation. Like, it's always been something that has been a part of where do black fans fit in with K-pop. And just so I'm outing myself and telling the truth about where I've been and where my journey has been with this, let me just say, when the George Floyd stuff happened, I did a video lambasting BTS because I felt like a lot of their music wouldn't be popular if it wasn't for the fact that they drew strong influences from Black people. Therefore, I thought the least they could do is support the Black Lives Matters movement. And then after I did that video, they donated $1 million to Black Lives Matter. So I did an apology video after that saying, I'm sorry I didn't give you the time to process this and make your decisions and do what needed to be done. I'm so glad you did that, and I am sorry. So that's why I'm putting that there. But I too was one of those people that felt like if you love our music and you love our culture and you do songs talking about how much you like Black people and how much you love Black music and you're constantly citing it as your inspiration, then you should have some kind of connection to the actual people. Because a lot of Black culture, if you're not in Black culture, a lot of Black culture is from a deep history of trying to make something out of nothing. Like, a lot of the reason why Black music is the progenitor for house music, disco, dance, R&B, hip hop. It's because people took the small, meager resources they had, and they decided to create something joyous, something that represented them, something that represented their journey across the Atlantic and their journeys through the colonies and how they landed at this place at this time. Early hip hop, if you look at a song like Rapper's Delight, it has a background track that's all from a Chic song. It's the sample for Rapper's Delight is from a Chic song called Good Times. Disco was a music that came out of Black and Latino gay people trying to find a home for themselves. It was born out of their feeling of isolation, their feeling of oppression. So they made a joyous sounding music to uplift their spirits. So you've got Black culture, you've got gay culture, you've got Latin culture, all mingling together to create disco house music. Then you take that and you put it under hip hop, a song that comes from the inner cities of big metropolitan centers where Black people felt like even though we're in the midst of all of this capitalism, we have no place in the system. So we've created a form of poetry and song to address our spot in the society. And it went, before the term viral existed, it went viral. And now rap is in every single country on earth for the most part. And so a lot of people, when they think about hip hop or they think about R&B, they think about melody. They think about vocal texture. They think about sound. They think about songwriting tradition. They think about percussiveness. Very few people think about, where in society did this music come from? How did Black people arrive at this point to where it became not only a song that is identified with their culture, but a song styling that became popular enough to then find its way outside of Black communities, but into the majority of America, and then past America into the rest of the world? And because a lot of people, even in the United States, who aren't Black, don't think about that contextual background for the music, it's ridiculous for me to believe that a Korean person is going to be thinking of all of that when they're thinking about Black music. Instead, they see the joy, they see the creativity, they see the uniqueness, they see the power behind the music, and they're saying this is something to aspire to be a part of because it triggers emotion. It's very compelling. It's something that sounds like nothing else on the planet. And so of course, they want a part of that. You know, a lot of times different Korean artists will tell you they fell in love with hip hop the first time they heard it and they've been a fan ever since. But if you go by what a lot of idols have said, their first loves when it came to hip hop were Sotaji or Epic High. You know, it's Korean acts who did hip hop. And through the Korean hip hop artists, they discovered the greater world of hip hop. And so I think that that's something that's important to pay attention to and to never give too much credit to a lot of these artists because, again, when you look at who these idols choose to marry, none of them are marrying Black girls. Not a single one of them. When you look at who these artists are friends with, very few of them have real and sincere friendships with Black people. When you look at how Black people are utilized in their music videos, we tend to be wallpaper. We tend to be background noise. I mean, a prime example of that, if you remember CL's video, if you remember CL's video that she did, that was her first official single in the United States, and you remember her on the balcony dancing between the two Black guys grinding against her, and then going out into the streets talking about getting lifted with a 40 in her hand and all these Black people dancing and gyrating and turning tricks in the background. Black people are literally an accessory to the hip hop aspirations that a lot of Korean artists have. If you look at the way Korean artists wear their hair and the fact that wearing dreadlocks to them is not Black, it's hip hop style. If you look at fucking Haha, Haha was a part of a reggae group, and it was Haha and Skull, I believe. And Skull, I believe, still does music on his own, but he has a video where he's got a black woman almost completely nude except for a pair of panties, and he's gyrating on the bed and sucking on her nipples, and it's like, "Oh, this is because I do real authentic reggae, so I have to have this black girl and practically have softcore sex with her to show how authentically reggae I am." And he wears these ridiculous, stupid locks. It's awful. But yeah, I think for a lot of Korean artists, when it comes to Black people and Black culture and Black music, we're a costume to put on and take off. Much like Crush could put on his Masked Singer facade and be like, "Look at me, it's the sound coming out of this black character, sounds like a black person. Haha, just kidding, it's me." Our culture, our music, our style, our hair, these are costumes in Korea. And one thing that I feel like is another part of the conversation to be had, because it is important, and I think it's the argument that a lot of people have about why are Black people so offended about the fact that other cultures want to participate in their hair, their style, their music, everything else. And how is that any different than Black people eating sushi and using chopsticks and liking Chinese food? Let me tell you why. When I eat sushi, sushi retains its name. It retains its actual Japanese name. When I pick up chopsticks, I'm not saying these chopsticks are an invention of my people or something that my people discovered. I acknowledge I'm using these chopsticks to partake in Asian food culture. When I say I'm eating Chinese food, right off the bat, I'm telling you, I'm eating Chinese food. A lot of times when Black people participate in world culture, we acknowledge the cultures that it comes from. So if we're wearing a kimono, we're like, I'm wearing a kimono because it's Asian inspired. If I'm talking about Bollywood, I'm saying it's a Bollywood style thing. Like we're constantly attributing different things to the different cultures we get it from. I can't think of a single time that a black person, and this is just for me thinking about it off the bat. I'm sure it may have happened at one point in time, but I can't think of a time where people who have appreciated Asian culture have tried to claim this was ours. This is ours now. No. Even when the Boondocks, a cartoon on Cartoon Network came out, everyone said, "Oh, it's a black cartoon, but it's done in anime style." So we acknowledge that even though we were telling our stories with our voice actors and our artists drawing this out, we acknowledge the style of the drawing is an anime style drawing style. So we're constantly letting people know, if I got this thing from somewhere outside of me, this is where I got it from. The only cultures that Black people don't give credit to oftentimes are European cultures. And do you know why Black people don't give credit to European cultures for a lot of stuff? One, because half the time it's already there. French fries, French braids, Italian food, uh, Spanish tapas, it's usually there. But also because Black people in America, I'm specifying America because it's very different in countries in Africa. Black people in America have been told since the day they were born that white culture is default culture. So, how do you assign credit to something that you've been told all your life? This is culture. This is what it means to be an American. This is culture. This is just it. This is the default setting for everything in life. If that's the default setting, then how are you supposed to say, oh, yeah, I'm inspired by Becky culture? I'm inspired by Midwestern church girl autumn culture, when you're constantly told this is just American. So we don't say, "Oh, I'm inspired by American white culture." We don't say that. If we wear long wigs that have, beach waves, or if we decide that we want to wear like big brown sweaters with skinny jeans and knee-length boots over those jeans, we're not going to say we're inspired by a pumpkin spice season. Well, we might say that, but we're not going to say we're inspired by white pumpkin spice season. We're just going to say pumpkin spice season styles. But people constantly use the argument of saying, well, it's cultural appropriation for Black people to wear wigs. It's cultural appropriation for a Black person to straighten their hair. It's cultural appropriation for Black people to do anything that's associated with whiteness and not give credit to whiteness. But they forget about all of the years prior to that where Black Americans were told, your culture is crap, your culture is shit, this is default culture, this is what everyone should aspire to. This is what it means to be American. And I think that's something that people forget when they're having their conversations about cultural appropriation. It would be ridiculous for me to sit up here wearing a hanbok and say, like, I invented a new style of clothing. It's this little crop jacket that ties on the side. I think it's going to be a big hit. You would know it's a hanbok. I would know it's a hanbok. Therefore, I would just acknowledge I'm wearing a hanbok or I'm wearing a hanbok inspired jacket. But we still get that acknowledgement there. We still use original words for these things, you know? Even like Hassan Minaj just did a comedy special where he's like, I'm so sick of people who love Starbucks talking about chai tea because chai means tea in India. But what's crazy is that at least they're calling it chai tea. Whereas, like, a great example, cornrows. Black people are like, I'm doing my hair in cornrows. When the Kardashians got a hold of it, it lost its complete name and became boxer braids. You have different foods that Black people have that get constantly like mistermed into something completely different. And then all of a sudden people are like, why are you mad? Why are you constantly screaming cultural appropriation? Because the people behind it get lost. And that's the part that I think this whole crush thing puts into perspective for me. And it's something that I wanted to have the conversation with you guys about. The reason why it's so offensive for Crush to avoid his Black fans, the reason why it's so offensive that his apology didn't mention anything about the fact that what he did appeared to be racist, and then combat that by saying, I am anti racist. I would never avoid a Black fan. This was a misunderstanding. I apologize. I would like to reach out to these people who I've offended and give them my sincerest apology. Instead of doing that, it was just, oh, I missed some people. Didn't mean to. It's okay. Because again, we can't acknowledge the racism. We can instead make it, it's a different kind of problem. It was a different thing because there is no actual caring for Black people, but there's an appreciation of Black culture. But it's just that it's a costume you take on, you put off, you put it away when you no longer need it, and you get a chance to separate the culture from the people who create the culture. And that's really tough. It's a really tough thing. And if you're a new fan to K hip hop, K R&B, I want to warn you now and say I'm so sorry for all the ways that K hip hop and K R&B will break your fucking heart, because it will. Over the years, I have found myself having to look at ways that Zico has done things that I thought were racist. The way that different artists have used nigga purposefully instead of just meaning nega. I have seen the ways that our hair has been worn as a costume. I've seen the ways that certain K artists have darkened their skin when they thought that that was a cool trend to do. And then when being dark skin was no longer popular, everyone all of a sudden had ivory white skin that they never had before. I've seen incidents where people who are African American visit Korea and talk about all of the extremely sexualized commentary they get on a regular basis from Korean men who see Black women as being hypersexual and have no fear about going to a Black woman in Hongdae or Gangnam or any of these other party districts and being like, hey, do you want to go home and suck my dick? As if that's something that we engage in all the time. I mean, just search here on YouTube and see all of the Black creators who talk about the wild experiences they had in Korea where they were asked to do crazy sexual things by Korean men because the image they have of Black women is a hypersexualized fantasy they get from watching hip hop videos from Black artists. Again, there's no humanity attached to Black culture when it's being perceived and synthesized through the eyes of people who don't live here. Hell, there's a lot of nuance that's missed from people who live in America, but especially for people who live outside of the United States, there's a really high chance of separating the humanity from the culture and therefore not giving a damn about the actual people. So I'm not gonna throw away all my Crush stuff because too much money was paid, so that's not gonna happen. Alondra gave me a beautiful Crush LP. I'll be damned if I'm gonna throw that shit in the trash. It's just not gonna happen. And if you want to still listen to Crush's music, I'm not mad at you. I could never be mad at you because I'm probably still gonna listen to it here and there too. But I'm gonna be disappointed moving forward by him. I'm gonna be disappointed if he doesn't give a better apology than what he gave. I'm gonna be disappointed if he continues to act like nothing ever happened, and I'm probably not gonna be in a rush to buy his new material because I need more. I need more, especially from somebody who has been given so much more. Like the audacity to do multiple songs with black artists, but then act like you have a problem touching a black person's hand. I Okay, so Crush has always asked, do you think he'll redo the apology? I feel like he has to. I feel like he has to. I feel like he has to redo the apology only because, if nothing else, it makes him seem as if he's not the person who he said he was all this time. And that's why I think he would redo the apology. I don't think he would redo the apology because he's like, "Oh shit, I wasn't very clear about the topic." I think he'll redo the apology because he'll know that international fans have not dropped the subject and it makes more sense to redo the apology. The only thing I'm concerned about when it comes to redoing the apology is I hope he doesn't pull a Mamamoo. I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, Mamamoo got in trouble for doing blackface on a VCR for one of their concerts. And their management issued an apology in English and an apology in Korean. And the apology in Korean was like, yeah, there were some technical difficulties and we apologize for that oversight. We'll get that fixed. And then the apology in English was like, we're so sorry we offended everybody. That was not our intention. Please accept our apology and we beg for forgiveness. And people were like, how funny that your apology in English says the right thing and your apology in Korean is like, nothing ever fucking happened. This is just a misunderstanding. Move on with your day. And so I would hope that if Crush decides to redo his apology, he will actually do a real apology. Or, use this as a learning opportunity for yourself and maybe, talk about like ways that I've realized I was insensitive and ways I want to do better. That would be ideal. I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be ideal. And if for no other reason, I think Crush should want to do better on his apology just because he is in a relationship with Joy. And it's a bad look for Joy to have a boyfriend who does stupid shit. So if he cares about her career and her international audience, then maybe he would be smart enough to be like, you know what? Let me just redo this apology because people are looking at my girlfriend like she's crazy for being with me. That would be ideal. But yeah, I'm hoping that he'll redo the apology. I'm sure it won't mean anything. Don't expect it to actually mean anything because apologies rarely ever do mean anything. But it would be at least kind of acknowledging like something went wrong here and I need to do better. At this point, I'm making my default setting disappointed when it comes to K pop. It is. But you know what? Being disappointed in something that an artist does is not confined to K hip hop artists who appropriate black culture. It's not confined to uh your favorite ex boy band member. It's not confined to any one group or type of people. In every single walk of professional culture, there's always going to be somebody who's going to disappoint you. I just read some story about some rock band guy who got in trouble for sexual assault. I don't know the name of their group, but it's like a rock group. And I could tell because it had one of those names that was like three different words. I don't know why that used to be a thing, but like it used to be a thing that people would have band names that had three words in them. Like if like blank the blank, blank the blank, blank the blank, my blank blank blank. So for some reason that used to be a thing. But anyway, somebody's always going to let you down. Life is full of disappointments. As you mature in life and as you become an adult and as you see things without the smokescreen of naivete or innocence, you're going to be disappointed. Whether you're disappointed by your family, your friends, your coworkers, your bosses, your schools, your teachers, somebody's going to disappoint you at some point because human beings are flawed. They make mistakes, they do bad things. And unless you decide to quit being a human being and live out in the woods away from humanity, you're always going to find yourself disappointed by something. But, you know, K-pop can only affect you as much as you invest in it. And that's a fact. Like that is like the bottom line. K-pop can only affect you as much as you're invested in it. And when it comes for me, I'm invested in K-pop very much in certain niche areas, but over the years, I have divested myself from K-pop to kind of avoid a lot of these hurts. And when I tell you guys, I don't know who the latest groups are. I don't know the latest gossip. I don't really listen to a lot of the songs anymore. There was a time when I was so much more invested in K-pop and I had so many more things to say about all the latest news about anything happening in K-pop, but I have less of it now because I've kind of niched my way down in K-pop. And because of that, I find myself a lot less disappointed, you know? Like right now, when I think about like my faves, it's Shiny. They don't really do that much. They don't do that much. Um, Red Velvet, the music's been a little disappointing lately, but they don't really do that much. Like I narrow it down and I'm lightly invested in things. I still spend money, but I don't obsess over comebacks anymore. I don't find myself looking for MV views and chart positions and all of that stuff because I've divested myself. And I find that by divesting myself from K-pop and kind of divorcing a lot of the emotional investment I used to have, I'm able to look at these things in a way that's a lot less harmful for my well-being. And I hope that you all will find yourself in the same position because it really does suck to be let down by people that you cared about. I'm thinking about Alondra in particular. Actually, side note, before I did this video, I actually DM'd Alondra to like, hey, I'm going to talk about this, so let me know what you think. And yeah, we had a brief discussion about kind of how she felt about it. And then I had a brief little discussion about how I felt about it, very brief. But, it is one of those things where, I know people who are super invested in Crush, and this really hurts. It really, really hurts that he would do some shit like this. But, check on your friends, don't trust your faves. Keep it moving, keep it pushing. You'll be all right. You really will. You will be all right. I know sometimes it feels like it's a lot, but you're gonna be all right. I know I'm gonna be all right, but you're gonna be all right. There'll always be something new, something fun, something interesting. If nothing else, apparently Dean is very pro black music, so not saying that he's any better than Crush, but there's an area to focus your energies if Crush is just not doing it for you anymore. Speaking of Dean, what the hell is he up to? Where is he at? What's he doing with his life? Has he cut his hair any recently? Like, I just want to know everything about that man. He's so fucking mysterious. People always talk about Kanye West being mysterious. No, Kanye West is just an asshole who's opportunistic and totally invested in white capital culture and doesn't want to admit such. But Dean, on the other hand, he's an actual fucking mystery. Half the time, I have no idea what that man's doing, why he's doing it, where he's doing it, or who he's doing it to. And I am always constantly curious as to what are you up to now? But that's all. Thank you guys for joining me for this live. This live is actually a lot longer than it needed to be because I wanted to, kind of surf the waves of this much larger conversation. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. And I hope that, if nothing else, this conversation gives you more to talk about. And if you'd like to leave a comment for me to read or for other people to read in the comment section so that you can kind of get feedback from other people, I'd love to hear it. I really, really would because I sometimes feel like because I'm talking to you like this, and especially if you don't catch this when I'm doing it live, you feel like you don't have an option to like voice your opinion. But that's literally what the comment section is for you to voice your opinion about things I've said, for you to ask your questions about, well, what about this or what about that? Now, when it comes to nonsense, I'm not going to really respond to nonsense, but if you like have a legitimate question that could use a little more expounding, I'm willing to go for that because I think that also learning is important. every once in a while, I have the fantasy that maybe someone out there is in a position of power when it comes to K-pop companies, and that they might watch my videos and be like, "Oh, I just learned something here. I'm gonna enact this in future things." And if for some reason any of the people that have ever watched me over the last 6 years decides to actually learn something from me, and then they're able to apply that to their life, then that makes me very joyful. It makes me very joyful that I'm able to provide that nuanced conversation. I'm able to provide those talking points. I'm able to change your mind and maybe help you get out there and not make a mess of your life, because there are so many ways that this conversation can be applied in other areas of life. And so yeah, hopefully it's added value for you. But also, like, if you don't care anything about this whole crush conversation, but you managed to make it to the end of this, I'm just going to say again, for those of you who live in the United States, Target has got this beautiful houndstooth fur coat. It's giant houndstooth. As you can see, the pattern is super huge. It's soft. It feels like you skinned a teddy bear. This jacket is $70. I know that's a lot of money, but let me tell you something. This is $70 that will last you at minimum probably 5 years, and it's fucking worth it. This thing is luxury incarnate, and luxury incarnate for way less than any luxury designer brand. So let that seep into your shondo and use that for the one final thing you can take away from these conversations. But thank you guys for being here. I really am glad that you're here. I love hearing from you guys. I love it when you leave comments. I've been trying to do better about responding to comments. I'm late sometimes, but I usually eventually get around to it. And I don't know, I just hope that your lives are good, friend. I really hope your lives are good. It is fucking hard out here. It is really hard out here. It is October, and I'm already thinking about Christmas. And because I'm thinking about Christmas, I'm already thinking about New Year's. And in going through that process of thinking about all these things, I just keep thinking to myself, like, wow, I have so much to do. I have so many things to take care of. I have so much this, so much that. And I get anxiety about these things. I get anxiety about how is the future going to turn out. And I'm in my 40s. So if I'm having anxiety about my future, I can only imagine for those of you who are younger than me, who are having anxiety about your first or second job, who are having anxiety about a big relationship you're about to enter, who are having anxiety about going away for school if you're that young. For those of you who are pondering these big life steps, it's hard enough dealing with that. But then put on top of it that K-pop is your escape mechanism. Listening to the songs and not having to pay attention to the lyrics, but just really listening to the sounds and the vibe is your escape mechanism. And then to have the real world and all of its complications and biases creep into what should be an escape vehicle for you, I imagine that's tough, and I'm sorry that that's happening for you. I really, truly am. But just know your feelings aren't bad feelings. Your feelings aren't uniquely weird feelings. It's feelings that all of us have. And you don't have to feel bad about needing to process information. You don't have to feel bad about having to reevaluate your relationships with these artists. And like I said, if Crush redoes his apology and that's enough for you, you don't have to feel bad about continuing to listen to Crush, because I promise you, nobody's faves are Teflon. Nobody's faves are bulletproof, even if their band name has bulletproof in it. Nobody's faves are perfect. So we all get to see an ugly side of our faves at some point or another. Just keep on going. It'll be fine. All right, guys. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate you being here. Bye.